So I'm chopping up this cantaloupe, and I have all of these seeds, and then it hits me. I can grow you. That is right, folks. You asked and I delivered. Well, actually, I asked and you said, meh, that's okay. So now I'm going to deliver. So the purpose of today's episode, first episode, whatever, I'm going to show you all a little bit of the things that I'm doing in my garden. And we're also going to do an experiment. I have these lovely cantaloupe seeds, and we're going to plant them 2 ways. Now, the funny thing is I've had tons of seeds from the grocery store that you would just assume that have been so hybridized and crossbred and genetically modified that they wouldn't germinate, right? I mean, that's just what I assumed. But I've had a ton of things this season that I've been able to get to grow from just seeds that I've had from the store or produce that I bought. Butternut squash, okra, tomatoes, black-eyed peas, and even lima beans. But for the purpose of today's experiment, I've got cantaloupe seeds, one of which I'm doing the kindergartner method, where you basically stick seeds in a wet paper towel and seal them in a Ziploc bag. And the other one is I'm just going to dig a hole in the ground and stick these seeds in. Clearly, Caveman Robert didn't think it was important enough to use any kind of implement other than his god-dang bare hands. So you can see I have to rip through the weed barrier I have in my front garden, dig out a little hole, and just as simple as you'd think, you just put the seeds in the dirt, fix it, and forget it. So obviously we won't have the results of this anytime soon, but I'll try and take some video in between so that y'all can see what the fruits of my labor are. But in the meantime, let's take a look-see at what my garden is doing today. So if you can believe it, all of this patch here is my delicious butternut squash. And that came from a butternut squash that I bought 3 or 4 months ago, saved the seeds from, and germinated. And look at how it has just taken off. Here you can see the beautiful flowers that are just starting to shrivel up, which means they've likely been pollinated by the busy bees today. In this patch of the garden, we have lima beans. And these things, let's see if I can pull out a few here for you. There we are. Look at these. They've just turned out fantastic. These are dried lima beans that I just had sitting in a mason jar on my countertop. Now, you know that these are ready to go when they turn yellow or brown, and you can feel the bean on the inside. When you can feel the outside, these are getting really close. But you can see some of these others in here, like these, need just a little bit more time, and then they'll be ready to go. So here are my black-eyed peas, and if you look real close here, you can actually see the bean pods that are forming, and the little bumps there are each going to be black-eyed peas. Those are going to be really good. And you'll also notice, if you have a keen eye, that this is an old horse waterer that I used in my chicken pen that has then been converted to a raised garden bed here. Now, the never-ending fight for any gardener is the battle with weeds. And you can see that what I've done here in my raised garden bed is I have laid down a layer of cardboard and topped it with pine straw as a means with which to combat the constant presence of grass and weeds trying to get into my boxes, and pests. Now, these green beauties here, this is my okra patch. And you may not think that this is a very big patch, but considering each plant will produce dozens of okra, I think we have more than enough. And if you can imagine this, these little okra plants here will reach a height of a minimum of 10 feet. Now this right here, this is my budding pride and joy. This right here is the biggest of my butternut squash. And as you can see, it's got a little brother too. These are just amazing. It has been incredible to see the tiny, just teeny, tiny little seed turn into these enormous plants. So if y'all can believe it, there's a still whole front garden that I haven't shared tonight. But let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to even see any more of my garden or any of my gardening tips, but there's something about working in the garden that brings back such good memories for me. And I think if you go back far enough, anyone has a connection to an agrarian past, but particularly being a son of North Carolina and Virginia on my mom's side, everyone in my family, for as long as I can remember, had a garden. And they canned and preserved and dried and froze even all this wonderful bounty of the growing season, all this wonderful fruit, and pass down these recipes and techniques. And there's something about that dying off that makes me very sad. And so that's why I've made sure that ever since I was a little boy, I've had a garden every single year. I think it's a skill that's important for us to hold on to. So, with that, let me know in the comments what you think, if you'd like to see more, if you'd like any other tips. And for the time being, I am Robert of Chrisco. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.